Hey, it's Luke here from iGen Entrepreneur, and today I'm going to be talking about goal setting. Some of you may recognize this slide. It's actually what I used to set my goals back around this time in 2019. And I'm actually just going to flick through this presentation and look at it from a point of view of kind of how did I sort of assess these goals and review them, and did they actually help me last year, and then how have I used this information this year to set goals that are going to be more effective or equally effective. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump into this. Yeah, so I kind of talked about this, and I'll link the video that I did do below, because I don't really want to repeat this information. I'm more just going to try and keep this video short and to the point as possible. So there will be a link below in the description for that video. And yeah, I kind of talked about the importance of accountability, and what I'm actually doing this time around for accountability is I'm working in a group with sort of as a core two other people. We're having bi-weekly calls to discuss and review goals and progress and sort of why things are working, why things aren't working, and to bounce ideas off each other and help with action plan settings, and then also in a larger group to review weekly goals. And I think that's going to really help, like that sort of tight-knit working together. And so I really recommend having that accountability. I think last time around I didn't really have it. I mean, I did do some goal setting videos, but they were just in a group, and whilst other people can see that, and it does help a bit putting it out there, you don't really have that person sort of at your tail, making sure you're keeping on track. So I kind of talked about the process, and I've done it differently this time around, so I'm going to talk about that soon. And then I talked about the goals, and so this one was an interesting one because originally I was going to be studying in South Carolina, and that then changed when I decided to drop out of university, and I'm now in Australia recording this video, whereas I would have been in the USA. So I'm in Australia for a total of about 6 months. I head back start of April, and so I guess in a way this was sort of achieved, but it just got changed dramatically. Yeah, so this is something I was actively working on, and I still am working on a bit, but I think with these goals, maybe you can kind of see, and I don't go into it too much, but they're not really well developed and thought about reasons sort of why I'm doing it, and that's something I'll talk more about soon. Yeah, so this kind of goal I'm sort of carrying on, but not for a while, which I'll talk about, and this goal, yeah, sort of still carrying it on, and this is probably the only one really which I'd look at and go, I've actually kind of achieved. And this is only, as I talked about in the previous video, a breakdown of sort of the summary of the main sort of core 11 goals that I did set, but I'd say this one is the one I probably made the most progress on. Personal development, yeah, something that wasn't really that well done. I mean, I think I've got better routines now. I haven't really done any sort of public speaking or that as much sort of reading and podcasts and things like that I'd like. So I think this one was a bit of a fail. And yeah, Amazon business has actually not been too bad. I've done a lot of progress here. Like I've scaled the business loads. I've sort of accounting and tax I'm still working on, but I've got to the point where I've got an accountant, I've got bookkeeping software in place, and I'm starting to develop those processes. And I made loads of improvements. I've got a repricer, sort of got an equivalent seller board I'm in the process on. I've got a team of VAs now, and I'm in the process of hiring 2 more currently. I've decided, which I'll talk about, wholesale is not something I'm looking at the moment, because I really want to focus on OA and get that to a point that I'm really happy with. Excuse me. And yeah, this trend carried on where I thought I just kind of went through the motions, and it's something that the goal setting this time around, which I feel like I've done more effectively, is really helping. I've got clear targets laid out, but yeah, again, it's something I'll talk about. And then I talked about how I went for that task. So cool. I'm just going to leave this up while I sort of talk about. I haven't really prepared slides. It's more just going to be me discussing process in that, and hopefully it helps some of you. One thing I will say is that I actually used Kev Blackburn's Life and Time Mastery course as part of this. That sort of one key resource, as well as my previous goals, and just other sort of research and noting things down. And this process took me probably 2 or 3 days of probably quite a few hours in total, but I really tried to make sure these goals are effective as possible, and that I'm going to carry them out throughout 2020 and beyond. And I think that'll really boost my productivity and get me to where I want to be as a result of that. So what I did is I worked through that course, which I'll link below, and it sort of took me through stages. And I think the first sort of key things that I did is I really outlined sort of in different aspects of my life, like health and fitness, family and friends, all these different things, like what are important for me in these areas. So these areas are, if I go like my business area, for example, it's kind of like a vision, and I put these on all my goals to kind of remind me in a way of like why I'm doing what I'm doing. And my business is financially successful and proud of what I do. People look up to me, and I have a team that I enjoy working with. Financial freedom will allow me to live healthy, to also treat my family, look after them, and do hobbies that I sort of aspire to do, and treat myself. Like a goal of mine, for example, is always to have a corporate box at Old Trafford where Man United play football. And so that's just something that kind of like reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then also as part of that, business-wise, I want to have my own sort of creation, or whatever you want to call it, I'm proud of. I mean, as everyone probably knows, I've really sort of focused on online arbitrage and a bit of affiliate marketing, but I want to sort of outsource that, really automate it, not be working in the business, and have something that I'm sort of developed that I'm sort of really proud about, so some sort of like product or sort of some service or good, that kind of thing. So I outlined those, and the other thing I did, which is kind of as recommended in the Life and Time Mastery, is I really took time to think about my 5 biggest achievements in life. And again, on every goal document I have, like you can list your goals on whatever you want. I literally just use Google Docs because it's simple and does what I need to. And I listed my sort of 5 biggest achievements. For example, for me, one of those were achieving 3 A's at A-levels, which is UK exams. Wasn't looking likely after the first year of A-levels, and then getting into the University of Leeds, which was the #1 university for accounting and finance. And then in my first year, I was second in the year. So that for me is like really top of the top, and it's something that I'm really proud of. And so it's there, and it kind of just, I don't know, it kind of motivates me and inspires me when I read that. And even though I then went and sort of dropped out of university, I think it's something that like goes and shows that I can really achieve stuff if I put my mind to it. I hope that makes sense. And then I've got others there, but I hope that actually gives you an idea of what I've done. So from here, I developed a list of long-term goals. And this, again, took a while. Like, it's over a few days. When I'd think of something, I'd write it down. I'd look at like other people's examples to sort of inspire and think about, oh, okay, that's sort of something I want to do, but actually this is what I want to do as a twist of it. Just things I can think of. So I'd list all them down, and then I have like a time I want to achieve it by. So some of these might be ongoing things, and the further into the distance it is, the harder it is to really nail down when you want to do it by. But what I then went and did is I sort of have these long-term goals, and I break it down into, okay, if it's something I want to achieve by the age of like 25, so pretty much 3 years now from me, then I go, okay, what would be my 1-year goal that contributes towards that longer-term goal? So, and then these sort of are themed throughout the goal settings when I break it down into like quarterly and monthly goals. So this is really important, and I sort of broke it down into, again, health and fitness, like personal development, family and relationships, and then from there, like, then you break it down into the goals. So that was a really important step for me, and it took a long time to do, but try and just list everything that you can think of. I think I had about 50 goals in here, and some of them sort of scale. So if I look at, for example, my contribution and charity type goals, I've got sort of by the end of next year, I want to have found something that I am passionate about, that I really care about, that's going to inspire me to sort of make a difference. So for example, I'm thinking it's something I'm working on. I give myself flexibility, and I don't want to do too much towards this now, which may sound wrong, but I think I want to really develop business and resources, and then have that sort of financial capability to really make a difference. And if I look at that compared to when I'm 40, my targets then, if I go down this route to house 1,000 people, house 1,000 underprivileged Africans. So like, it's something that's maybe sort of a bit more personal to me, and I'm not really sure about it. That's just an example I'm thinking of. But then I've got goals that sort of work towards that. And that might not be a great one in terms of like money and financial goals. I've got a net income goal, which I've kind of derived by looking at what do I want to achieve in terms of housing, car, some of those hobbies I mentioned, like the menu box, how much money do I need to achieve them, and then have like sort of a net income target, and that sort of grows year on year. And again, it's really personal to you. And last time I sort of shared all these goals and everything, but I don't think I really need to give too much insight into that. It's more about what really works for you, and it's going to help you. I think the biggest thing is you need something that's going to not be forgotten about. It's like my previous goals, as I was sort of talking about, I didn't really look back at them after sort of a month or so, whereas these, I'm trying to really reflect on them. So like my monthly goals, I'm looking at every week in order to help me plan that next week. And then every month, I'm looking at my yearly goals to help me plan the next month goals. So I talked about having those long-term goals. What I then did, broke it down into 1 year goals. So I've got 35 goals that are working towards my long-term goals. And then the way I structured this is I literally, again, every document, I've got my 5 biggest achievements, and then my sort of my visions for those core areas. And then I listed all 35 goals, and for each one I've got what is the goal. So for example, one of my goals is to read 12 personal development books, and not just to read them, but to sort of explore them. So to read, either whether that be actually physically reading it or listen to an audiobook, and then from there making summary notes and like YouTube videos as good sort of 7 to 10 minute summaries of these where people explore it, and even discussing it with a friend, and trying to really not just have it on in the background and go, oh, okay, I'm listening to a book, because that's kind of pointless, but really actually soak in the important parts and make the most of them. And so that's an easy one to explain, because then from there I've got to go, okay, well, I've got to do 1 book a month. That's going to be one of my monthly goals. So that would be the goal. And then the when's by the end of the year. Doesn't have to be by the end of the year. You could have a goal that's by the end of like this month, or it's got a certain date. So you might go, okay, I want to go to an event and it's at this month, and you go at this date, and then you know exactly when it is. But I've sort of got that when. Then I've got the how. So I really talk about, like I said, that how I'm going to achieve it. So for that goal in particular, if I give you an example, I've got by listening to audiobooks and Audible in the car, even in the gym potentially. And also if a book's particularly good, so like I did this with the 4-hour work week, I can buy it so I can actually have that paper where I can read it and digest it again. Audiobooks are good, but like if you think of something, it's hard to then record those notes and explore it. Whereas if you're actually reading it, you can dissect it properly and sort of fully go into it. And then, as I sort of said, I've got, as part of that, how looking at the opinions of others and discussing books will maximize the benefits. And then I've also created a folder in my Google Drive for books, and have a Google document for each summary book, which I can then reflect back on. And then I've got a why, which I think is really important. So for each goal, I've got like, why am I doing it? And for this one, I've got to learn from others. I always go back to the example of, you wouldn't walk in front of a car and let it hit you to know that it's not a good idea to walk in front of a car. That's like learning from others' experiences, if that makes sense. And so for the sort of personal development goals, I have to help me achieve that sort of personal development vision, and also to discover new business opportunities and improve the existing business. So I kind of talked before about having that product as that good or service that I want to create and have that as my business. So this will help me get ideas for that. And then also just to challenge how I think about day-to-day life. I think it's really important to not just have your fixed ways of going about things. And even with these goals, like they're going to change and adapt. It's not something you have to go, okay, I'm going to set it down and I'm going to achieve it no matter what, because things change, and this is just really good to help give you that sort of direction and lead you along a path to where you want to be, and that want to be might change. And then I've got a progress of each of the goals. I've got a progress. So I actually haven't fully finished 1 book this month, but I've sort of almost at 1 book, and I've sort of got explore that in my review as to why. But sort of for this month, it's because I actually worked on a course as well. So I was sort of listening to a course a lot of the time, so that kind of took up more time. And so I'm happy with that. It's like I kind of got that accountability that I've looked at and reviewed and gone why. So I've got 35 goals, all sort of developed out like that. And I've got another document, which is quarterly goals, which isn't as important, but I've actually got a quarterly goal specific for my Amazon business. All of these goals documents are just for general life, business, everything mixed together. I've actually got a 3-month plan, which is specific to my online arbitrage business. And that's really helping me to sort of break down these goals. So I might go, okay, I've got a goal for my online arbitrage business where I want to generate, 2K in profit a month by the end of the year. But then you really break that down and go, I didn't want to have pages and pages on these goals. So I've got like a 15-page Google Doc where I've broken down a 3-month plan for online arbitrage that's going to help me hit these goals. So again, on this, like every other document, I've got my achievements and visions. And then the one thing I do is that, so I've got my 35 yearly goals, and then all these goals will either be MISC or I'll have the same goal number, and then that correlates to the yearly goals. So for example, I've got goal 2 here, which is to read one personal development book, and then the when's by the 31st of Jan. So it's got the same structure as the goal, when, how, and obviously I don't put the why again because you're just kind of repeating it. And then the progress. And so all these goals sort of correlate. So I'm working towards all my 1-year goals. And I won't have every goal in January. Like there's probably about 20 goals in here because some of the stuff is like for later in the year and I'm not starting to work on that yet because I'm focusing on online arbitrage, and maybe I want to do something else like affiliate marketing type stuff, which I'm focusing on towards the end of the year. But this is again just how I'm sort of doing it, and I think it's going to really help. And then I've got my sort of review. So on the 31st, I sat down, I scheduled it where I'm going to review these goals, see how I'm going, how I'm working towards. Am I happy with where I am? Like, why have I hit certain stuff? Have I not? And then I'm going to sort of discuss this as well with people I sort of mentioned before. And yeah, then I've gone and set goals for February. So when I've done that for January, I've then gone, okay, what are my February goals? And I've looked at my yearly goals, looked at my January goals, long-term goals, and gone, okay, what do I need to do in February to walk towards those yearly goals, which are working towards long-term goals. And this is really kind of just giving me sort of direction. And I talked about earlier on in this presentation, if I go to it, where going through the motions. And I think that's the case a lot in sort of general life. I feel like I'm very easy just sit at my computer, just go through emails, go through whatever task you need to do, where a lot of the cases, those growth tasks that are difficult to do, where like you sit down and maybe hire a new VA and you've got to create the role, create the tasks and document stuff, which isn't easy to do, but it's the most worthwhile stuff. And it's having, okay, I've got a goal. I need to actually get this done by that time. And I found that it's very easy for like 3 months to slip or something. I remember when I was trying to move from Amazon's repricer to a new repricer, I was kind of waiting for something, and then before I knew it, it had been about 3 or 4 months, and I was still using Amazon's repricer, and I was like, where's that time gone? So having those sort of deadlines, soft deadlines, just to make you aware of, are you actually making progress sort of where you want it to be, it really helps. So if I look at what I'm doing going forward is I'm going to try and do this video sort of every month and maybe a goal post. I think I will do it every month. That's one of my goals, is to do it every month. But as I kind of said, I'm not going to sort of go through every goal and go, oh, have I achieved it? How have I done? Because that's kind of what I'm working on with other people. I don't think that's really beneficial. Sure, it helps to have examples of goals, and you can go and look at other people, what they're doing, what websites say you should have as goals or whatever, and use that kind of to help brainstorm. At the end of the day, you need to have stuff that's going to work for you. And I think it's really true that the longer this process takes you to do, the more useful it is, because you've really got to think about stuff like, and that's the core part. And this is why I go back to that life and time mastery. I found it really useful, it sort of walks you through this process and makes it really effective. And I'm hoping that, I'm really confident that because of that last year's experience, and I've used this course now. It's going to be really beneficial, and I've noticed that even in the first month, like there's a lot of things where I've kind of gone, oh wow, I've actually got to do this by this date, especially in the online arbitrage stuff. And I'm like, what I've actually done for it, like what I've actually achieved. And at the same time, it makes you note what you have achieved, because you look and go, wow, I've done this, and like, wow, I've done that. And it's actually pretty cool. And you're not just doing you're not just being busy, like you're not just checking your emails and doing whatever stuff that's not contributing to growth. You're actually being productive and you're getting these things done. And so I'd recommend check out the course. I'm going to put a link in the description. It will be an affiliate link, and because of that, as a thank you, if anyone does check it out, it's pretty useful. I'm going to do, or offer if you want, a free 30-minute call to help sort of develop like a sort of action plan that I've done, and also talk through any goals and sort of make you sort of question why, and like sort of bring that out of you to hopefully go, okay, why have you done this goal? What are you doing to achieve it? Like, how are you going to achieve it, if that makes sense? And so if that's something that interests you, feel free to check out the link in the description below. If not, cool. I still recommend you do this process, but it may not be as effective, but it still should help you. Cool. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully this video has been helpful, and I'll catch you next month for a similar video. Cheers.